Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR, and I'm your host, the counselor. Today, we're going to be talking about something that many of you may have forgotten, or it's been such a long time that you don't know what it feels like to be this. It's one of those unique feelings that if you get it every once in a while, your life is good. What are we talking about? We're talking about happiness. I think we've been down in the dumps. We've heard such bad news out there in the media that everything, all the statistics, it's all negative, scary, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. So we got to kind of try to do our best to change our focus, reevaluate, rethink, get a new perspective. How are we going to do that? Because we can't lie to ourselves. Things are somewhat grim out there, if we're being truthful. I mean, everyone's talking about a vaccine. However, I haven't seen any real progress. Promises are being made. We hear that everyone's working on it. However, it's still a wonder if they're going to do it, if it's going to make this break. But I do know the population of infected individuals with COVID-19 as of July 10th, 2020 in the States is up over 3 million people. And that is outrageous. And that would make anybody cringe. People over here looking over there are really getting sad. They're like, wait, what's going to happen? Even if we have it under control over here in Canada, a lot of people are going to be thinking to themselves, wait a minute, what if they open them borders up? If they open up them borders, those ones that are infected over there in places like Detroit, Buffalo, Sarnia, all these ports, right? That will just spill right over here, because I hear it's greatly infected in those areas on the state side. So it is hard to think of happiness. So I think we got to change that perspective just for a little bit. Let's act like we're going into like a dreamscape where we're just having some thoughts and we're just drifting back into what was happiness and how could we define happiness. Well, it's going to be different things to different people, but it could just be as beautiful. And maybe when we talk about some of this happiness, some of you can relate to it, like what happiness is. See, to some people, especially during COVID-19, happiness is going to be taking pictures and making memories of those family members, especially during these times. So instead of taking that negative, it may be some of the happiest times that they have, because now actually things have slowed down for a lot of them and they actually get to spend some time together, be a family again. We're always moving to the beat of the drum and going in different directions, but as sad as COVID-19 is, we can understand why there's a lot of individuals out there who are very happy that they get to spend some time with maybe siblings and parents. It's something that brings a lot of happiness to people. It's not just a negative. It's a lot of cohesion there. So that makes some people happy. And there's, with the downturn of COVID over here in Canada, right, we're still seeing some low numbers, which is good. However, people are still dying, and there are people who are very happy for the ones who are there for them through their being thick and thin. They're being supported, so they're very happy. That's happiness for those individuals who are on the receiving end to some support from loved ones, people who always they could count on. That's happiness. And I believe happiness is love, giving love, and getting love, right? It's loving others and being loved by people. Just feeling like you belong somewhere, feeling a sense of comfort, of familiarness. That means everything. And when you're feeling that way, you're definitely thinking happy thoughts, because you feel like you're a part of something, you belong somewhere. And in a world as complex as, there's so many different things going on around the world, and people pushing and pulling, and people don't know when they're coming or going, and it's just very busy. But the thing is that family, right? Just knowing that you're loved, and you have someone to love, that's a great happiness for a lot of people. That's an appreciation in itself. I mean, what makes me happy sometimes is when I see a family member, and or even give them a hug for no reason at all. Say, hey, how you doing? And give them a hug just to let them know that they matter and you appreciate them. And that's what it is. It's funny because I was walking down the street just the other day, and as I was rounding the corner, I saw some kids jumping on a trampoline, and I was thinking, oh man, it's been such a long time um, since I've seen kids actually jumping on a trampoline, and they just seem so happy. And I could see that was, you know what I mean, happiness to them. But see, also in our family, we have some people who like to consider themselves singers. And if you like to consider yourself maybe not the greatest singer, but you find that music will open you up to the point where you're singing. And singing, it takes a lot of strength. People don't think it is, because first of all, it takes some strength to sing in front of people, right? And because people could be judgmental and they could say certain things. However, you got to be a little bit brave, and you got to have that I don't care attitude. And that's what makes me happy. And I'm sure a lot of people, when they even drive in cars and they hear those songs that they got to sing, it's automatic. It's such a good feeling. It's like, it's funny because some of the songs that you hear will remind you of certain generations, certain years, and they just bring back memories. And it's like, where has time gone? Because time does go. And if you have those good years, then you know what? You're happy, right? But happiness is also how you think about things. Being happy for the future, and this is a hard one, but there are people who are happy about it. They have this positive mindset, and despite what's going on, they believe that we're going to pull out. And there's a lot of people that believe that, and I believe it. I believe we're going to get through, and we're going to be positive people. And there's a certain happiness to know that we can endure. But that excites a lot of people, right? To keep pushing, to keep working on things. As deep as it's getting, we could see certain successes in certain areas, but that's a true happiness for people. Just thinking about the future, right? Thinking about the possible and where you could be. It's funny when I think about happiness. I don't just think of it like one specific time that I was happy. I think about happiness being just certain moments in your life, little tidbits here and there. It could be that it happens periodically in your life, and that's what enriches your life, is those periodic moments of happiness. And that's what I tend to appreciate. I mean, I also sometimes, I'm very happy when I think of a time where I might have heard a joke before, and then maybe a week later or something, I remember as an incident that happened and a joke, and it makes you laugh. And see, that makes me happy too, when you can recall things, and acknowledge that you're experiencing these little joys in your life. But that's happiness for some of us, right? When we can actually absorb it and it goes through us. And there's other people who are more simplistic. They just want people to talk to. They're happy chatting and talking for hours. And it's satisfying to them. And it just brings them comfort when they can talk. And that people do it. People do it more often than you care to believe. And then there's people that, they just realize that, hey, you know what? This person that I'm with, they're not like the other person. They're a little bit awkward, a little bit weird, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. That still brings me happiness when we understand each other, when we can look at each other and signify to each other that we really do care and understand, and we commit, not just because of paperwork. We're there on it. We care about each other, and we're not perfect. And this person that's beside me, they could be a little bit awkward. However, I can accept that in them, and that's happiness for some couples, for sure. You know, just You ever laugh uncontrollably? You ever have that sort of laugh? The other day I was laughing and my side was hurting so bad and I couldn't stop. And then when somebody's there with you, like they're laughing, even cracks you up even more. But I was laughing so uncontrollably loud that I almost was crying. It was so deep and it was so funny. And that, like I said, those are some of the moments that make me so happy. And happiness is other people, they take it deeper than that. They take it like on a journey. They're so happy that they found the love of their life. And they're convinced that, the love that they've shared and experienced, that's the true happiness. And I can't argue with them. But people who find the love of their life, those are people, that's a happiness for them. There's other people who just like waking up close to someone. Having someone there to wake up to. The person you love is right beside you, right? It's almost like you're going through this life with a partner. And the memories that you're going through, you get to share or discuss or experience. And it's almost like you're not going alone, right? It's a feeling of happiness for a lot of people, just knowing that you have somebody to wake up to every day and count on and just go through life with. Then there are people who are more simplistic than that. They're happy having a book at a beach, just sitting down, some quiet time. And that could be some golden time because the hustle and bustle out there that's happening in the inner city or even the GTA. That's when you only get beach a certain time of year. So when you do get that time, you cherish it. So but there are people who that's what they want. They just want the book and a beach. They don't want nothing else. No toys, no nothing. They want to sit back and want to relax and they want to enjoy their book and the sun. Right? And then there are people who are dream chasers. And what they do is they're happy in the sense that they have dreams and they're just motivated towards achieving and acquiring and realizing their dreams. So what they do is they spend their lives working on those dreams or chasing those dreams, and it's good for them. And there's people who are on the other end of the spectrum who aren't about that. And they say, you know what, they're more practical. And their happiness is in structure, right? Dependability, concrete thinking. Those are other people's happiness. So it could apply in both situations. You ever just realize that happiness could be you doing things for other people? I think that's undervalued. Happiness. When you do things for other people, and it could be little things that you've come to be a part of, and yes, you might have established a routine. So let's say you're supporting someone, even in the family, and you're doing for them, and it becomes a constant routine, and you like it, and you like the fact that you're actually doing for other people. That brings people happiness because they're doing for other people and they get a certain feeling from that, and it brings them happiness. And I think it has something to do with being tied to your human side. I think there's a part of us on that human side that at a certain stage in our lives where we tap into that human side, and then when we start to fulfill those human feelings and give out there, that's a true happiness for it. It's almost like a connect. It's like you're just being genuine and you feel good about doing for it, and that person is not just appreciative, it just feels good to be connected in that role. And that's a happiness for certain people, just knowing. And they'll do it and they'll talk about it for years, like even family members talking about taking care of other family members who are less well off, who might have a disability or be battling some sort of disease. That person right there, just being there for them, that's a happiness for them. That's something, and that's why I said I think that's tied to our existence. We're going to talk about some happiness that a lot of people don't talk about because it's often a little sensitive, is the happiness of losing weight. Right? Because a lot of people don't really want to talk about it. But when they lose weight, that brings some real happiness to a lot of people because it's not so easy to lose weight. Especially if you've been heavier and you lose a little bit of weight, then people could look at you and immediately tell, my goodness, you look good. And even you not only hear the compliment, you feel good, you feel better. And just knowing that you did do those things and you lost some weight, that's happiness for a lot of people, right? There's people that just enjoy, going home and kicking off their shoes and sitting back and relaxing. That's happiness. Being around family that you get along with, that's happiness. Now, what about sleeping? What makes me really comfortable and really relaxed, and some of the best sleep is when it's raining against my window and I'm falling asleep in the rain. That puts me under so deep. It's such a good feeling. It's like, oh my goodness, you go like into a serious deep sleep, and it's so relaxing. And it's like you just sleep, and you get some of the best sleep when you sleep and the sound of the rain is hitting the house, even the roof and the window, and you can hear the sound pounding, and you just like, boom, it's like a beat that puts you under. That's happiness. But I also like when, I get my me time. When I get time to do things that I want to do without interruptions and no obligations. I didn't really think how important it would be as I get older, but it's become more important that I get some me time. And it's even gotten to the point where it has to be scheduled in. But it's so important to get some me time in there, where you can think and process and just relax and just reduce the amount of mind chatter that comes in your mind, and just think. Maybe do certain things on your own for a little bit. Just relax. It's me time. Or go somewhere sometimes, just do something for me, But perfectly, I have to have at least 9 hours of perfect sleep. You know what I mean? Perfect sleep for me to have some true happiness. And then what also makes me a little giggly is music. When I listen to music, like I can listen to a song and play this song over and over. If it's such like a really good song that's kicking, it's almost like I want to learn the song. But music, like a certain song or a certain artist will come on and I'll love their music, and that'll give me some happiness. It changes your mood. You can go from being agitated and boom, just makes me feel good, But what I do dislike is getting up early. So if I didn't have to get up early every morning, if I didn't have to set my alarm clock, each day or the night before it and get up at a certain time, if I could just get up when I wanted to each day and sleep in despite my commitments, that would be true happiness for me. And I'm sure it would be true happiness for a lot of people, because I know usually we got to wait for the weekends, and then when the weekends come, it's like a Saturday, you really want to sleep in, and so you've been waiting all week to get this deep sleep, and you don't even know. When you get that, you try to get that sleep in, it's interrupted. Oh, you could go upside down and inside out with frustration. Because I can't stand being interrupted on my weekends when I'm trying to sleep in. But it's because it's such a happiness to me, right? It's always a happiness to me. And there's different happiness out there for sure, because of the different likes that people, have in their lives. It's like some people are so simplified that, they just like to even watch TV, watch the cooking shows. That's happiness to a lot of people. And it has to be, because there are people who are really into cooking shows. There seems like there's 20 to 30 different cooking shows. And I have to admit, you would think a cooking show would only get your attention for like a minute. Sometimes I see myself going through cooking shows just to see what the next cooking show is. To see how good that... Because there is some stuff on there that, man... That's happiness. When you see the food on some of those cooking shows, it's like, it's good. And they have an unlimited budget though, right? And it just looks so good on television. I like Carnival Eats. I see all of them, the BBQ shows. But my point is, it's happiness. It makes me feel happy. I like to spend some time watching some of them shows, and it's like, even like to see them put it together. You're like, man, because there's a part of me that's a cook, and I don't just see. I'm not like the regular people who are just happy because they're greedy. I have true interest in watching the cooking show. I've actually practicing my culinary skills during COVID-19, so that has actually become a hobby and a happiness. That's twofold for me, but it's happy. It's happy time for me. I love it. You know, I like to see the shows, but you got to watch it because you become influenced by those shows. Some of them where you go out there and you start buying all that rich, super sweet junk, and you're just like piling stuff on top of stuff, and then you're not happy anymore because you're overweight. But if you can keep away from it, you'll be happy, right? Follow your heart. That's what makes people happy, when they follow their heart. And that can be a tough one, though, following the heart. It's not as easy as people think. And when you think about even a relationship, it could be, okay, I'm going to give you some straight up examples about happiness. You could be in any relationship out there. Any relationship. But then, let's go deep. We're going to go deep with the relationship. So let's say you have two people who are homosexuals, and one of the person's family member doesn't agree with it, for sure. They're just like the old traditional way. And the partner, because, you know, there's a lot of pressure to listen to the parents, right? And they want to be together, but a lot of kids, they got a parents, so they feel a lot of pressure from the parents, and that. It just, all I'm saying is it takes a lot of wherewithal to follow and be happy. So the happiness could be happiness being together, them two together for them, right? And, you know, in any situation, it could be like when you go, basically the point is when you have a friendship relationship and you have some differences with the parents, and you love who you love, and you go with who you love, and you make it work the way you work, that's what you should be celebrating, if you're happy that way. You know what I mean? And it's not being judgmental at all. Everybody's going to do their own thing, but the point is there's pressures out there. So when you want to be happy, sometimes it's not easy to be happy, but that's happiness for people. They'll take that over the alternative, right? They'll decide, hey, listen, this is my happiness. You have your happiness. And that's sometimes how they look at it, right? They look at it like the younger people could look at the parents saying, well, listen, you had your happiness. I got to have my happiness. But it's harder for them when you're not accepted. See, that's why I say happiness isn't always easy, but these are things that make people happy. But they got to fight for it. So it's not so easy. Sometimes I like to take a nap. And even as old as I am, that makes me happy. Like, I could have been working all day, but if I could take a nap, and it's so weird, I don't like to get used to it, but, you know, getting a nap, sometimes just a nice little nap takes, even if it's for a half hour, it makes me happy. Just here and there, if you can get a nap, right? And there are people who are happy with doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're just content. You know, they're very content individuals that they're so happy and content with doing nothing that there's nothing wrong. It's just, and it could be because of the state of the world, right? Where, you know, it is a busy world, and they find peace in just relaxing and doing nothing. I remember when I was younger, I used to love, like, so we'll talk about what used to make me happy when I was younger, but I know when I was younger, being at home alone made me happy. It's almost like you could do anything without looks or, you know, accommodating anybody, but sometimes it's just, because it almost, when I was a lot younger, it made me feel like I was independent, right? So that made me happy when I was home alone. Just taking naps whenever I want throughout the day. Just, you know, I was just being at home, being me, but it felt good. Like, you know, when no one else was there, it's almost like your own place. And you like to imagine those things when you're younger, right? And some of us have. And it's weird because what makes us happy, and I think it's for a lot of people, I'd give it at least 90% of the population has to be happy with this one. You have to be happy with your bed. You have to be. I mean, I would pay anything to have a good night's rest. And I think the bed is so important. I mean, I grew up on all different kinds of mattresses when I was younger, but when you get older, it becomes so much more important. And the technology has advanced. I mean, they got some beautiful mattresses out there, super mattresses. But when you get a mattress and you can sleep, and it's just like, boom, as soon as you go and lay down and you're out, oh my goodness, that is it. So you have to have that right sleep. But everybody would have to admit that happiness is in that mattress, in that sleeping mattress, and whatever else you're doing. But that mattress, it has to do its job. And you can't go too cheap on mattresses. You know, you got to put in a good penny for a good mattress, because the truth is, a lot of us get our money out of mattresses. Don't matter, you might even spend $2,000, but if you got it for 10 years, you get your money out of it, right? $200 a year rental of mattress, it's not bad, right? But we've talked about some standard happiness, and those are some of my likes, but what about some real life happiness? Like, for instance, what about a criminal who gets put behind bars and he sees all his old buddies? That's happiness for them, because they're around people they're familiar with, right? It's all in perspective. Think about it, right? You're going to a place where probably 1,000 people are locked up, and you've been transferred to a new place, and you don't expect to see anybody from your old neighborhood. The next thing you know, boom, there's like 6 or 7 on the block. That's happiness for them. But also, what else could be happiness for them? Getting bail, getting out of jail early before your time is due. Getting somebody to put some money in their bin so that they can buy some things while they're living inside there, right? Because they have a cash deposit system where you can give them money while they're living in there. So I'm sure that brings them happiness. What else brings them? Tuesday pizza night probably brings them happiness, right? Visitations, I'm sure, brings them happiness. So happiness is about perspective, right? What about being found not guilty? That's going to bring some people some happiness for sure. Now, if we really get deep into it, then we're going to have to say, what about those people that actually have been incarcerated and they actually didn't do the crime, and they find out years later that they were innocent? And those people who've been either fighting for years, and then they were told overnight, could you imagine? Not overnight to them, but all them years of fighting, and then all of a sudden you're told you're going to be released. That has got to be true happiness. But then there's some bitterness, right? But in that moment, that's got to be true happiness. Or happiness could be, for some families, putting away people who are abusive. Getting them charged, put them away, getting them off the street. People who are doing bad things. It's happiness for certain people who might be scared that there will be retaliation and things like that. That could be happiness for people, to keep people off the bat. Right? Like, happiness is keeping the criminals off the street. That's what happiness is for a lot of people. And it's that simple. But then there's also people who are happy just on the thought of winning the lottery. Just like, it's not even that you're winning. I think it's making people, and that's what they're going on to. That's what these organizations are doing. They're milking you for that feeling of happiness. And it's almost like a stretched out happiness, like a happiness that you're not probably ever going to see, but there's a possibility. So you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is keeping me happy, and just knowing that one day I might hit. But there's a lot of people that will never stop and do that. They never do that. They never stop and go, oh my goodness, my chances, I'm never going to win this. Because as soon as you say that, people are so into this happiness theory, that they really, you could say that to somebody, oh, I'm not going to play, forget it. You know what? I actually realized I got a 1 in 10 billion chance of winning. I'm not going to play this silly game. There's no way. I'm spending 50, 60 bucks a week on this. I could be rich if I just kept the money, but I'm not going to play this silly game. Not again. I'm not going to do it. That's the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to save my money. I realize it's just milking us all. And then before you know it, somebody comes along and says, but what if you win? What if you could win? Well, how would your life change? And then see, we go into this trance. We start dreaming about what could we do if we won $1 million. That's happiness. Even though the houses cost $1 million everywhere in major cities, I don't know if it'd be happiness because you got to take care of it. See, that's what they don't tell you. See, happiness would be winning $1 million, but they don't tell you the sad part of it is being able to maintain that $1 million. That's what they didn't tell you. See, you could win that $20 million lottery hole, but if you only make $30,000 a year, you're going to be the maid there or the butler because you're not going to be able to sustain that. They don't tell you that. Probably half those people win those homes and they sell them as soon as they get them. But they're happy with that. That's cool. But that's what you got to understand. They got some beautiful homes out there, but it's not just about getting that free house. You know, we got to learn that from that show in the States where they were giving those people remodeled homes and those people were selling them as soon as they turned their back. That's what happens if you don't maintain it. So it sounds good, but no. You got to think about the happiness for a lot of people, but you got to think about the responsibility behind that happiness. But it would be some happiness. Because if you ask people what they would do, most people will want to buy a house if they don't own one already or put money down on the house. But it's those locations. Those are usually multi-million-dollar locations. But anyways, that's still happiness for a lot of people. Gambling is happiness for people. But see, that happiness that they have, if it's not watched carefully, it could turn on them. That gambling could destroy families. It is a happiness until it gets out of control. But a lot of people, they're into it. They're happy. They're like, you know what? I like to get away every once in a while. I'm retired. I'm not hurting anyone. You know what I mean? And that's how a lot of people do it. They go there and they play the slot machine. Then you got those ones who are, you know, they get a little into their emotions and it becomes a regular habit, right? And next thing you know, they're spending more than they can afford. And then they're in deep. And it starts to take over their relationships and impact their family in different ways. But happiness has to be viewed at very carefully. Because it's not just what happiness is, it's what happiness will be if you think about it, right? I know that at the stage that I'm in, I find happiness in traveling around the world, and maybe some of you do too. I do. I do. I love traveling, and I think it's important to travel around the world to see different places and, you know, see what's going on. I don't like to travel to the same place twice, but it brings me happiness when I can travel. See, that's what right there we have to even look at and reflect back on times that we did travel. See, that brings me happiness just to know that that was part of my portfolio, that it was something that I used to do. I used to just travel since I was younger all across the world. And I would honestly say I've had some wonderful experiences, you know, took everything in stride, good and bad. But now that I can reflect on it, that brings me some happiness, just knowing, right? That makes me feel good, just knowing. But then I also think that we have to look at happiness when we think of traveling. Because 90% of the people, why are they traveling? They're traveling because they want to be in places that make them happy, where they can sit in the sun and enjoy their drinks, all you can eat, go out and do a little bit of entertaining, catch a little bit of sun, relax, no commitments, you know, no excessive responsibilities. They're in a place of calm and cool, and that's what they're paying for, and that's what they want. And that's what 99% of them get. However, what I have to do as the counselor, I have to tell you that in your travel plans, you might want to start traveling to places not only that you just like break it up. Like even I don't know how often people travel, but, you know, break it up. Like every once in a while, go to a place that is more organic, more natural, and you see, you know, and people will be living like the culture and just showing you where the roots of things have come from, and just going to those places where it's real, less urbanized and gentrified places. You want to go where there's places where it's like a natural feel to it, and you could see the people, and you could contribute, and you could learn something, and be a part of something, not just be a person, an individual, or a couple that goes to a place, enjoys the environment, and then they're out. I think people can do once in a while. At least they should be doing this in their lives every so often, just touching bases with places that, you know what I mean, you can do some good work. Even if it's for like a day or two, 3 out of a week, or out of a 2 week. Doesn't matter. My point is just being out there and seeing the world for what it is. And it's not easy to do that, but it really is easier to do that, right? If you balance things out. And I think that's a caring individual, and that's happiness. That's where because let's be real, like going to all these places all the time, that's interesting and great, and they're very popular, but it becomes monotonous after a while, and then you start to look at a zest for life. Where's your zest? What is, your infinite life, not your finite life? So that's why I say happiness. Try to get some balance in there. But that's how it is. But if I were to talk to my partner, she would be like, happiness is to me just keeping this place organized and making sure everything's working properly, and my space is taken care of very well, and making sure that the home is taken care of, and things are functioning well. That's what I mean within the home. I think that's what happiness is. Where everybody's getting along, not just everything. It's the whole picture. So that makes them happy when they start to see balance there, where it just functions good, looks good, and it feels like home, right? Where, as opposed to it being wild, out of control, and because COVID-19, it does bring on those behaviors. It does get to a point for some families where it could get a little rowdy at times, right? And it makes the environment unpleasant. So happiness for some is just having a common home, a home that they feel like it's a home, and it's operating, it's functioning well, basically, right? That's what it is. And then for other people, it's just like nature. They like to go spend time in nature. They love the cottage life. They love to get away from the city. They love to know that there's a place that they can go to get away from the city and be around family. And that brings them happiness as well, when they have family there that they can share their times with. Spend some relaxing moments and get to, do some discussing about life and experiences and just relational talk. Just doing that in family, it makes people happy. It does. It gets people commonly get into this thing where they're shopping all the time and they can't simplify their lives, and they're buying their happiness through some of that shopping. And it's true. There's small doses. That makes people happy. And you know which people I'm talking about, ladies. Shopping. Women love to shop. They love to shop. They love to get their goodies. And that brings them happiness. And I can't blame them. Shoot, if I can get it all, I'll get it all myself. But what I can tell you, it does bring happiness when you buy things. But see, as guys, I'm going to speak for myself. I get a quality item, I'm good. You know what I mean? If I get something I like and I'm good, and I want it to last. I want it to look good, but I want it to last. I want it to be quality. I want it to feel good, and I'm good. You know what I mean? And that's it. And the rest will take care of itself. But I do believe that women, they're very intricate. All genders could be, but women especially, they love to shop. They love, they love to get their goodies. They love to do all those things. And that's happening. Manicure, pedicure, hair done. Oh, yeah. That's happiness. And if you're a man, and I'm going to say it, if you don't listen, if you ain't got no money, no nothing, and you can't, and they want to get their hair done, the nails done, you ain't got nobody but yourself, right? Because that's a given. And I'll tell you right now, with women, boy, it adds up. And you got to keep pace. And they got their money too, but they don't want to spend it. They ain't stupid. So like, if you want to be in a relationship, especially if you're coming in and you think you're taking care of business, and you want to be treating your queen like a queen, and you can't treat her like a queen, and she can't get the basic stuff, you know what I mean? What? You got some problems. So this has to be a given. So happiness is keeping them happy with certain things, for sure. And that's a given. That's, they know what they want. But are you going to give it to them? They can get it themselves, but they ain't, like I said, why get it if you can get it? Right? That's all I'm saying, Uh-huh. And happiness to me is doing what I want when I want. And take that how you want it. But there's people out there doing what they want when they want. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with money. But there could be happier things to come, like as far as what I could do with money, right? Like if I could do what I want when I want, if I had a little bit of change, I could really do more of what I want. See, dude, that's how happiness can be expanded, right? So if we think about, if you ask anybody, hey, what would make you happy? Happiness, I think it's based on people's limitations too, when you think about it. What makes people happy? Because I think you can put limits on what people expect to be happy. What level their happiness is. I think there's a limit. I could say, oh, you know what? If I have a car that, I'm driving, it's dependable to where it makes me happy and I feel good. It's my car, this, that, right? But then there's other people whose happiness is at maybe a different level. I have to have a certain level of car, a certain class of car, a certain expensive car. And then when I live that life, that's my happiness. I can't be doing this. I have to be doing that. There are people out there like that, right? Where they got to have it their way. And if they have it this certain way, do you understand what I'm saying? If they have it this certain way, then it's going to be okay. Because that's the only way they want it. They don't want it any other way. It has to be this way or they're freaking out. They're not happy. So that's what keeps them happy. Living at this certain level. Which often is a cut above, right? They see themselves as a cut above. And some people call them arrogant. But that's what makes them happy. And you've seen it. You've seen people that they wouldn't get caught dead in certain things, cars or what have you, they just wouldn't do it. Because they have their limits to what they won't take and their expectations to what has become acceptable to them. That makes them happy. Other people don't care, but that's their happiness. And if they don't have that, if it's not provided to them, they're not happy. And happiness could be different things to different people, but one thing that makes a lot of us happy is when we make decisions in this life, especially challenging ones. They could be some of the most rewarding when you see, like, hey, I made a very difficult decision. I didn't really know. There was no guarantee how it was going to come out, but it actually came out all right. And that really makes me happy to know that I'm making decisions that actually make a difference and they work out in the end. Right? That makes some people happy. Just that reward system and that understanding that, you know what? And it brings about a trust in yourself, right? It does. It's also happy for people to know that when there's events to be celebrated and they have friends and family come and see them, that's a happiness for individuals. When there's a gathering, like think about the anxiety that could be for some people who aren't like that popular or aren't that well known. And let's say if you're an individual that, you know a lot of people and you have parties and it's just natural that they gravitate, you're an extrovert, you got the social thing down and, it's happiness, right? And then there's a person that it doesn't work for. Maybe they're the introvert. That's not been their focus. They've never had it. Not this, and it might even scare them because they're introverts, right? That something like that getting together might freak them out a little bit, but it could be a happiness of theirs to have those people when you're feeling like, let's say, it might not be their everyday common, but if you're usually, put aside or more reserved into your internal and less external, then maybe that could be happiness for you, just to have that recognition and acknowledgement. We have to think about that. We have to be those type of people that don't just think about bringing ourselves to the front and forget about those people whose happiness matters as well, because you can have so much happiness. If you know you're loved and you're acknowledged, you should be looking to spread that, not just to absorb it. That's important, because happiness is different things, but a lot of the unhappiness we could see and just do little things to make people more happy. And then we're going to talk about happiness prospectively, as far as happiness in North America compared to another alternative country, right? Like, what's happiness to us, people would look at and go, that's happiness? That's not happiness, that's heaven, right? That's just another world. They couldn't even think to dream to be on these simple things that make us happy. And I think this is why we have to talk about happiness, because happiness is definitely different things to different people in different environments. It's not just about family and laughter. It's about serious things, serious conversations you have with your children over here, and they get an understanding. That makes you happy when you know you're communicating with your children and they get it, right? They get it. That makes them happy. But when I'm talking about happiness abroad, think about right now, even during COVID-19, what would places like Brazil, because Brazil is flaming with the COVID-19. It's just ravishing. United States is too. But I feel that they have the resources to help in a lot of those cases. I think that there's a lot of change that could happen in the States that they should not be raving on like that. I don't know. I think there's no cohesion among states, and people are just doing what they want to do in the States, and it's sad to see, but it's actually going down. And this COVID-19 has got a certain amount of people over there. They're strong. That's what's beautiful about it, is that there's a lot of people out there doing wonderful work. But I'm talking about some of the decision makers that are giving mixed messages. That's a problem. There can't be happiness there. That's why I said we're going to look back on this, I hope. But all I'm saying is, in those countries like Brazil, Africa, happiness for them, like, is totally different what it would be for a lot of the suggestions that I made. Totally different. Some would just be happy to have medication, to live, to breathe, food. Happy to know that there's a future, to, make sure the families could provide for each other. Like, for example, parts of Africa, it's devastated, and the sick are getting sicker, and the numbers are growing. I think they're at 300,000. But my point is, the happiness that would bring to some of these people would be to do a little bit of donating. Now more than ever, we should be saying, even in Brazil, we should be trying to give a little bit to say, these are really trying times. And I mean, $10 off of each person, even a month. It could be tough for not everybody, but think about what the difference would mean. Like, instead of getting coffee or going takeout. But even in Brazil, these people are suffering and dying. And happiness, some of them wouldn't even, that concept would not even exist in their mind, because of some of the things that they've been dealing with, even prior to COVID-19, but now, especially because of COVID-19. There's no happiness there. There's no happiness in knowing that the sick are getting sicker, people are dying by the thousands, the government is in chaos, people are, even in Brazil, they're blaming the head of the government. They want to switch him down, but they know that it's kind of getting to the too late point, because it's growing at such an alarming rate. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Happiness for them would be getting some control of things, starting to see numbers decrease, and people getting the proper treatment, and the government, being unified with them, with the understanding that, it's not just about what you did in the past, it's about what's happening now. But my point is, simple happiness would be granted to Brazil with some organization and some support. And the WHO, we all have roles to play, but we could do little things that make a big difference, especially now during this crisis. See, we're giving money, even a little bit of money, but are we able to pass on a little bit? No, a lot of us ain't. A lot of us are saving that money. Some of you, and they're even complaining about it in the news. They're saying some people are trying to buy their happiness, and how they're buying that happiness is they're taking them checks. And they're taking those checks and they're building them up and they're holding it back. And some are sneaky. Some are putting that money away and they're holding it back. They're going to put it out there eventually, but not now. Some of them are slick. But what I'm saying is, if you think about happiness, think about your happiness compared to their happiness. They deserve a true happiness. Your happiness, in many instances, can be controlled. There is no control. There's no controls in place for a lot of the decisions are being made on people in suffering countries. Whether it's child slavery, poverty, disease, malnutrition, racism, classism, but especially severe poverty. That's what I'm talking about. And this is a time more than anywhere, any time in history where people got to see past those little supports and these bailouts that they're getting. See, when you get these bailouts, like I'm seeing that United States is giving, I think, close to $2 trillion, and in Canada they're giving like 343 billion in Canada. The UK or the European Union, I think, alone gave like trillion or two, and then the UK went up to like something like 600 billion. All I'm saying is all this money that they're printing up, all of it, think about it, all this money that they're printing up, it's this paper that they printed up. And you know what? If they can print it up during these times of need, that should show a lot of us something. Whose happiness are we living? Because if we're really going to be happy as human beings, we're going to look across this world and go, there's too much work that needs to get done. And this is a time when we should be looking at it. No, it's not just about passing that $10. All I'm saying, that's the minimum we should be doing for all people. It's just, we're getting something and we ain't even looking at 0.00% of giving it and passing it forward to make somebody else breathe another day. We're not willing to do that. So that says something about this society. Oh, we'll tell you about, everybody's going to cry about they can't do this or they can't do that. Everybody's going to give that sob story. But when you get some perspective on happiness and you look at happiness, you could even compare yourself to a lot of those situations and just be happy in that alone. People can do that alone. They don't need any reminders if they really want to look at it. But see, all I'm saying is this is one of the most crucial times where we have to consider simple happiness that we are afforded each and every day is just a dream to people in another land. And us not having masks, see, because this is some of the issue right now. People are complaining. And I seen it even on the news. People are complaining about mask wearing. See, because now it's mandatory in Ontario, at least, that everywhere you go, you got to put a mask on. And I mean in any store, you can't just be walking in the stores without a mask. That's where we're at here. And see, the other day I just saw on the news there was a person who was in a store and the people said, listen, you know what, you have to wear a mask. And so the person became very irate and started cursing, and then it became racial, and then it just got the yelling, the screaming, it just went on. And the thing about it was, if that other person who wasn't wearing that mask would have thought about, number one, regardless of what the rules are, it's just respecting other people. These are minor things that if you think about the happiness and the life that you have, the life that you're afforded, then these things and these battles or carry-ons that we engage in, they're less valid. because we start to think of the greater picture and the appreciation and how thankful we are. And so we're not battling each other over little things like that. But see, that's where we're at. That's how petty it could get in North America. See, when everybody's afforded all this happiness and privilege, it's perspective on them. They ain't thinking about anybody else. They're not even thinking about when they're arguing. And see, that could also be attributed to that frustration of COVID-19, where the person's in that store acting a fool or being upset because they're not comfortable wearing a mask. And I get it. And we're going to have those, and we have to accept it. So even when we're looking at that, we got to go, there's people that are going to get pushed out of shape. So it's not personal, get mad at them. But if they get some perspective and start looking at some of these other perspectives that are out there about what can make them minimum, make them happy, then the problems some of us face here are nothing in comparison. However, a lot of us don't think that way. And we're not even shown to think that way in society. We're shown in society to compete with each other, because that's what we've done since the time we started school, right? We thought that when we compete against each other, because it's human nature, they say. So we thought, well, when we compete against each other, and we win that first prize, we're happy, right? We're happy because we win the first prize. So one person wins, because that's the way it is. One person leads, one person wins. Even if there's 20 people, one person wins. For sure, I see it. And it's like that. But that's only one side to the coin. We also have to say, happiness, why couldn't it just be maybe satisfied and appreciative? Not just happiness. Whereas you see those numbers and you figure out how to work it out, where certain elements in society can be successful, not just the winner takes all, etc., etc., etc. Think about the generations that go on, and you look back and you see maybe 1-2 people who've maybe dominated in sports, where there are a lot of people who are different in different areas. So what I'm saying is that happiness that we have has to be viewed from many different lenses. So thinking about what would make people happy, especially during phase 2. I think we're all in phase 2, which is where we're back to starting to get back somewhat to normal. A lot more shops are opening up. We're not, apparently the ultimate phase is what, phase 3? So we're in phase 2. Things are really starting to open up. People are really comfortable walking around. And when you think about it, what's going to make some of these people who are in right now happy? Like, that would, and I think it's kind of been said out there that happiness for a lot of people will be going back to work knowing that you have proper and appropriate PPE, guaranteeing or at least protecting you. That's happiness for certain people, knowing that their work is looking out for them and they're going to ensure that they have the proper equipment. Happiness for frontline workers could be having enough support staff in there to balance the workload and help them take care of people without them burning up. That's happiness. Happiness to doctors may be having enough staff to deal with the amount of clients that come through the door, being able to service all those individuals. That could be happiness for them. And happiness also could be for them to see this thing start to turn around, or something happen where they're not under such pressure, all these frontline workers. And happiness would be if somebody finds a vaccine, right? Happiness. But I believe if you're happy and I believe happiness can be like powerful, in the sense that the more positive we are as human beings and appreciative, and our happiness is understood, and our minds are clear, and we have a objective, then I think happiness can multiply, and we can do some really good things with happiness. and we could take that happiness and show some appreciation in the world, right? And it could really have a really excellent impact. I believe happiness is not just a one-off. I think it could be many different facets of your life, and it could lead to some wonderful things, happiness, if we understand and appreciate. And we also analyze and look at happiness as whose happiness. It's almost like critical literacy. Like, let's think, what's in it? What's in it for them? How is it going to impact? Like, thinking of the deeper things when it comes to happiness, what it is for different people. Happiness for somebody who's, had been battling cancer for years could be just to go into remission for whatever length period of time, just to give them a break, to let them breathe again, to give them one last chance to talk to a family member. Happiness could be for somebody who's really on their edge of their seat and they're at their last, the last dance where they need a machine and it's looking like, it's not looking good for them. And they get a machine and they come and they work through it and they come out of it. Like, that's pure happiness. Happiness for parents who have a child who may be sick could just be letting this kid not suffer and get well. And even it could be, and I know this is not just me saying that, happiness is about the kids and stuff. Like, when your children, like, that's happiness. Like, people can have all the problems in the world, even in a relationship, but when their siblings are going through things, they could feel so helpless that they're trying everything and it just doesn't seem. And even when people talk to them and they say certain things are going to happen, some of them, all they're hoping for is some relief, some positive direction, some stability, something that's going to make the situation better. That's happiness for a lot of people, especially when it comes to their kids and supporting them. Just having and even happiness could be having somebody there with them to help them support their kids, somebody to talk to, somebody to support them when they're going through all these challenges. And if they're single and they have a kid and their kid's not well, then I think having someone there for them to show them love and care, and that's happiness for certain people. It is. It's all the thing in the world. And that's all. They don't want a fancy car. They don't care about a big house. See, we get in certain situations where happiness is all about perspective and what you're going through. And just those experiences could give you different psychology around what could be your happiness. See, we also look at the world. See, this is the thing. We look at the world a lot of the times when we walk out the door. We look at the world and it's just people moving around. If we could only read minds, I think we'd be blown away to see some of the things that people are dealing with. Because people, in some sort of way, are dealing with something. Wouldn't it be just a miracle if you could just read, like, some of the thoughts that people were thinking sometimes of what they're going through, right? And what would make them. See, it's so hard because when you have a job and you're like, oh, you know what? I'm working with this employee and I want to make them happy. What's going to really make them happy? Well, if you don't know really what they've been going through or what their life is like when they go home or some of the challenges, if you're not really attached, and a lot of people keep their personal life at home. But if you don't really know that, you don't really know what's true happiness to them. Some people will, but a lot of people won't. Like, unless you know that, it makes all the difference in the world. And being connected. And the only way you're going to know what creates happiness is if you, number one, learn about happiness in your life and how it impacts people. And when you learn about people as individuals and learn about what they're going through and what makes them happy. Sometimes something you could have just taken for granted your whole life. Somebody right beside you could have just wanted a taste of that. Just a little bit of recognition, and that would make them happy. And see, this is the thing, we can often get it caught up in our own I would say our own life, our own flow. A lot of us get caught up in our own flow, and that doesn't mean that we're trying to leave other people behind, but when we're living our lives, getting our attention and going about our responsibilities and our commitments, sometimes we could just get on a thing where it's not like we're purposely ignoring people. It's just we don't realize the support and happiness we could bring to some people just by acknowledging them. right? Just or put not just putting ourselves not just second, but just acknowledging that you giving a little bit of your happiness to somebody else. That's what I mean. Giving your happiness to somebody else. That's how you should look at it. Okay, wait. I'm a fairly happy person. Can I give a little bit of happiness to this person? And if you think that way and you could give a little bit of happiness to somebody else, you know what? You're making the world a better place. If even if it could be one thing, but if you could give a little bit of your happiness when you have your happiness. A lot of people you could see this is the thing, there's the pessimistics out there. There are, and you know it. And that's what we're really fighting. Those are the we would have more conversations on happiness. I don't even think we even see the word anymore, happiness. People don't even want to read the word happiness. But the word happiness should be talked about, celebrated, and appreciated. But we've gotten to the point where, there's some negative nannies out there. There's some people out there that just, it. It's in the work too. If they're talking about people, there's negativity. If they're doing something that's got a negative spin to it, or they're downplaying things that happen, it's that undertone, and we have a number of people out there that are doing it. So a lot of times you got to fight that. It's like even when it comes to the cliques, right, in the work environment, sometimes you got to fight it. Like you think because when you're with a number of people, and if you're all together stating certain comments, that everybody's cool, but you might not be happy with that because you might be like, I don't really feel that way, but I'm with them. It would make me happier if I was like, you know what I mean? Didn't get represented under the. So happiness could be a certain sense of freedom, but as I mentioned earlier, it takes some risk, it takes some bravery, right? It takes some doing. I often think about some of the less fortunate, even in North America here, some of the homeless kids that are out on the street. I always try to give them change whenever, and you know what? I think it's so important to give them little supports. It get and people ask me that. I have people when I'm driving in the car, if I pull up even to the highway and I see some individuals asking for change, right? And I'm very open to it, and you always get those comments by people. Most people like that know that you do it regularly. They're not gonna say anything, but there's people that might not. Oh, look at them, and I wonder how they got that way, right? And then I did have someone say, oh, you know what? Don't be giving them too much money because they're gonna go and get a drink with it. I said, what? They're saying, yeah, and that's the thing. We give excuses because we don't want to, right? And they were like, oh, you know what? Because, you know what? Do you think it's good? And I said, I'll be honest with you. I remember giving a homeless person outside the LCBO as I walked in, because, that's where a lot of them hang out, right? They hang out outside the LCBO because they figure if you got money to drink and get tore up, then you got money to give to some homeless person. Or could be the other end of the spectrum too. You're so tore up that you're just going to give as much money as a homeless person wants. Either or. But the point is they know where to go to get that change. But my thing is so I told the person, I said, listen, what's funny? I gave a person outside the LCBO some money. And then I went in and I went to grab something. This was years ago. I went to grab something. And then I was walking down the aisle and I saw this person walking, and I'm like, I just gave you. Actually, I remember now. I gave that person like $20. I was feeling so. I don't know. Something happened and I was just feel like, hey, listen, if I had $100, I would have probably gave it, thinking it's going to bring me back good luck or something. No, I was really being a good Samaritan. But I gave them $20 and I was like, $20. And, I was so proud of myself. I was kind of tickled with myself because I was like, man, you're a good person. You really are. You have such a heart of gold that you're giving that person $20. And you know what? I didn't even look around when I gave him $20. I just gave it to them. I said, here's for you. And they said, thank you. And I said, okay, great. But then, as I remember, I gave them that $20. I was like, I almost wanted to. I got to admit, I was walking around the aisles and I was thinking, wait a minute, like, they're here to buy something. Okay, they're not in here begging, so they're going to buy. I wonder what they're going to buy, right? So that, so they were in there and they went and bought a little bit. And then I was like, at first, I got to be honest with you, I was taken aback and I was just like, you know what? I was a little offended. I was like, you know what? like, I don't know if I feel good about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I work for mine and you ain't working for yours. And that was what a lot of people feel. And then, like, how dare you take my money that I work hard for? And this, that. No, that's what I was feeling for about a minute. And then, honestly, I really, after I was in line, I thought about it. I went, no, that's not why I gave. I don't give worried about. And you know what? If that brings them a little bit of happiness, I'm for that. If I can spread, it ain't $20. It's a little bit of happiness. That's all it is. A little bit of happiness. Give them a little bit of happiness within reason. Give them a little bit of happiness. And I think by giving that person a little bit of happiness, it made me feel good. But I also had that side to us. And I want to talk about that side too on one of my podcasts. That side, that side that always, we have that side in us. I don't know what we're going to call it, but we're going to probably call it not just ego, but we have that side to us where, you know what I mean? We have that selfish side where we're just like, hey, like, you know what? Like, oh, if it's not conducive to what I want, like, you know what I mean? If you're doing something and I look at it like, you shouldn't be doing that, it's not good, it doesn't make me feel good that you're doing it, and I feel that you're taking advantage of me, then I start to feel like, oh, you know what? Like, selfish. My selfish side says, you know what? Me. And then I forget about the happiness. And we have that in us. A lot of us have that side to us, right? That side, that gimme side, that selfish side. And there is a good side to being selfish, for sure. But there is that selfish side that some of us, we'll be saying no in a lot of situations, and we don't really got no big reason for it, but we have our reasons. And we say no in certain situations, you know what I mean? And we think, well, that's just me, that's my happiness. But it's still a selfish part to us that when we look at and we really analyze, we say, wow, man, like, you know what I mean? I have this part of me, that keeps me here. And it's that part. And a lot of times we don't look at it because no, we're more than fair to everyone. But the truth is that we have a selfish side to us. And how that plays out with happiness, I don't know. Sometimes when we make decisions that we think that's going to make us happy, right? Because it's serving us, it's our individual, our needs have to be met first. That's happiness. So it's different. It can really impact our life depending on how hard we hold on to that part of selfishness within ourselves. Happiness could be different things for different people. Like clothes that they wear makes them happy. When you buy clothes that make you feel good, or accessories, those are things that make people happy. We're going to talk about that happy because it can get out of control. The more you crave these things, you got to be mindful that it's impacting your real happiness. Just knowing things are going to be okay is happiness to some people. It feels good. I want to say that happiness could be getting a really good cry out. Just releasing the stress, the weight, just the heavy feelings that we could carry, whether it's an incident or just years of built up tension. It just releasing that, having a good cry. It's just so, it can bring a happiness to you because we take on things and we take them on and it builds up within us. And until you release it through a good cry, you don't realize how refreshing, exhilarating, and relieving that could be. It's just amazing. But having parents that love you and support you unconditionally is important. But not just parents, loved ones. And I mean having someone to love you, whether you have biological parents, regardless of ethnicity, culture, gender, having someone that loves you and cares about you genuinely, that's happiness for a lot of people. And not just says it, shows it. Someone that says that they, you haven't seen them in a while and they say they miss you, that makes people happy. It's happy to see people who you haven't seen in years, how they've grown, how they've changed, or how they haven't changed. But you haven't seen them in years, and that makes people happy because you're like, I haven't seen you in over 20 years. And just to see them, well, even whether it's a reunion or just to get together, when you have, people acknowledge each other and care about each other, that's happiness. Getting a new job is happiness. A new child is happiness. Clean water is happiness for people. Good health. I'd say good health is one of the top of the list for happiness. Good health. Living a viable life, maintaining your health, trying to balance things out, but having your health, that is precious. That's priceless. But it is happiness. And how you take care of your health can impact the amount of happiness in your life, right? Like if you're taking care of your body and your mind, right, then you're 3/4 of the way, because you are making sure that you are open and that you are cleansing yourself and you are doing some mind meditation once in a while, and you are acknowledging that these things matter and they impact your happiness and your health and the things that you eat. It does. If you eat junk food, a lot of people feel bad. They feel good because of the taste initially. However, the impact on their body is not good. They might not know it. Some people don't care. Oh, I love my desserts. And food, I told you at the beginning, food makes me happy. I love food. Food's a happiness, especially when I go to play. And the thing is, we're so blessed that we have so many options. But of course, that's my happiness. But think about in another country where they don't have all these restaurants. They don't have access to all these resources. What's their happiness? Their happiness is getting a rice cake or a meal. Never mind a shot or a cure. There is a meal. Just their happiness could be seen the next day. Or what about countries where there are civil war going on, and the happiness that they might never feel? And is it possible that they might never feel any happiness in some of these war-torn places? People and families that are living at borders and they've been misplaced or displaced, misplaced and displaced. It's so sad that we have a world that we live in, and there's such tragedy going on, and there's so much that we can do that we're not doing. But like the happiness, I mean, I don't know. I feel it's heavier when you're working with people who have a different sense of happiness, like a very genuine, plain sense of happiness, and you see that just the little things impact them. Sometimes it breaks you up inside. It does, and it's because you can't believe that these little things make such a difference in someone else's life that anything you ever thought about is gone, because you're just like so impressed and impacted by that you're just like, wow, I wish so many more people had that feeling of true happiness of things. And it's true, because even a lot of people who come from other countries to this country, they appreciate for sure what they're given. And it sometimes seems that they appreciate it more than the people who are raised here. I gotta say that. I'm not joking. I see people who come from other countries and, they like come here and they're looking around and they're making like, what? They're looking around and they're like, my goodness. To them, it's just like a whole different world. And they're appreciating that. They really are. They are appreciating it. It's not until the ones that are here are corrupt, fighting the system, carrying out. A lot of them who are here, not just in the criminal system, no. In all aspects of this country. Right? All of them. There's so many in this country that are showing a lack of appreciation for their position here. I mean, there are people screaming, go back to your country, and they're from other countries. That's how relaxed they got, right? That's serious. And even the deaths and the killings that are going on from the First Nation and the black folks, and I'm really disturbed with that, because forget happiness. Happiness isn't even something that's on their docket. No, it's not even registered. So when we talk about all this happiness, we're talking about a certain segment of society that gets to look at things and describe their happiness. But then there's people out there that they ain't seeing certain happiness. They might not see happiness through most of their lives. And somebody showing them happiness for a moment could be something that they live for the rest of their lives. But I'm just thinking about all the happiness that's out there that people are enjoying. I think we have to start putting it into perspective. We really do, because we have to also think about even a month ago when the seniors living in the retirement homes were passing on, and there was an iron curtain even around the retirement homes, which means they weren't allowed to visit, get near the facilities. There were homes out there. And I mean, there were a number of retirement homes. And family members were just passing on, and there was no closure. And we talked about this a month ago. But understanding that those people have lost loved ones, and now their happiness could be in, hey, I get to have some closure. I get to see my family. I get to visit again. That's happiness for them. They don't want anything else, but that's happiness for them. Getting back that connected. Because when they were disconnected, it was just blowing their world apart. I've talked to people about it. They've told me the trauma that they were going through because they missed their parents. They were so close to their parents, and they couldn't stand being away from them. And it wasn't feeling like enough for them. They couldn't give them a hug, right? And half the time they were yelling and screaming about the communication not getting through properly. So this is real happiness for them. This is what constitutes real happiness. Just that closure, that connectedness, being able to see them and make sure that they're okay. And just knowing that their family members are okay makes them happy. As you can see, we've talked about happiness in its many different forms. And we have to realize that as happy as we could be, looking at other people's happiness, it could help us as individuals, especially when we know we could share and spread some happiness to other people. If we all do a little bit of that, a little bit of caring, getting a little bit away from that comfort zone, do a little bit of caring, which takes a little bit of courage, and spread a little bit of happiness. Because there are plenty of examples that I could give you of people that could use some happiness. Think of those countries where, like even Haiti, they're beautiful people over there, but they're, like many countries, they're ravaged by hurricanes or tornadoes, and, certain Caribbean islands going through a lot. These people could use some happiness in their life, a little bit of care. And I think that's why I said we need to talk about happiness, because there's so many avenues that we could go down to acknowledge and recognize the state of happiness of each individual. And I would say I'm appreciative and I'm happy in many different areas in my life, but I know there's always work to be done. And for me to be happy is to know that we're doing some work and spreading some of this information and actually taking some action in areas of our lives that could give out some happiness. If you have some happiness to give it. Put a little bit of happiness in someone's life. Look around you. There's people that could use a little bit of happiness. You see somebody in the store and they don't really have enough money, and you know what? Boom, and you got a little bit of change. That could make that person happy. But it's not really easy to do that, though. You can do it, but it's getting harder to do that. You know why? Because we're not in the habit of practicing happiness. Right? It's true. See, like, I thought about even what I just said. And I remember, distinctly remember, when there was an individual who had not enough money. And I went to give them some change. I said, here, I got it. And then the person goes, oh, no, I'm not going to take it in. And then I was like, ooh, okay. I was trying to be me. And then they were like, no, I got it, this, that. And I was, for a second there, I almost got offended. But then I thought, you know what? No, we have to be able to understand when people are trying to help. But we've gotten to the point where we don't. A lot of them don't. A lot of people can say there's a lot of reasons for it. But we're at the point where we're not in the habit of practicing happiness towards each other. So when somebody does give it, it could be seen as a sign of, oh, you're perceiving me as I can't afford it, or there's so many dimensions to this thing. You're just trying to make somebody happy, and you're happy doing it. However the person, so we can't take that personal. However the person takes. Sometimes they're just, they feel that, they could have been living a life where, they're secret. They don't want people knowing them. We're very protective in a lot of areas of the ways. We really are. We're very protective people in society. And sometimes to the point of closure, in the sense that we close ourselves off to people, you know what I mean? And, we're not willing to accept people doing things for us. And I think that needs to change, but I think it changes through efforts and actions. But it is still happiness that you're trying to spread out there. But you can do it, and don't let that, discourage you, because it discourages a lot of people. They get offended and they make a rude comment, or it stops them from trying to give. Don't let it stop you. Be that caring, giving individual. And you know what? Your happiness will continue to shine. I think the happier you will be when you learn to give and appreciate that just by you giving, it creates a happiness in you, and that will make your life better. Because there's only so many things that can make you happy on the material end of life, right? And that's why we're going to talk about that later in one of my podcasts on finite and infinite living. So I want to say thank you to my listeners. And we talk so much about happiness. And in the end, people can be happy for little things, and some it would make them happy to do leaps and bounds. But then there's others that when you compare yourself to them, it's like you've got so much happiness to give, and they're just needing a little bit to live. And that's where we are. So thank you, my listeners, and please spread the word like the wise old bird. And remember, the counselor is thinking about all these things. We have to get back to finding some of our happy moments. So if you're at home, work, wherever you are, spread a little bit of happiness. Find out, look at your life, and even write it down. I think the difference between risk and resilience is, I've always said, is the difference between protective factors and risk factors. But what I'm thinking of is positive and negative. How many positive things could you be appreciative for and happy for in your life? And how many negative things are you encountering? Try and look at those every once in a while, right? To get some balance. Like if you don't have enough positivity, and think of it like a scale. If you have a side of your life where you have a list of things that, oh man, this is going down. It's not easy to change your mind to that happy state if you have a whole list of negative and you only have a couple things, because that's usually what we do. That's where we get sad in our lives, is when we don't, number one, acknowledge or recognize the blessings that we have in our lives. And so what we do is we end up, problems come each day, and we're dealing with situations, and we have commitments. So those are perceived like a whole bunch of negatives that we have to accomplish. And it seems like work, and it seems like exhaustion. However, if we could take some time out to look at some of the positives in our lives, and if you have a couple positive and you got more negatives than positive, put some in there. Start balancing out. Say, no, this is way too much stuff I'm not doing. I could be doing that's good for me. and good for somewhere else. I could be volunteering at this thing. I could be contributing this. I could be a part of something. I could be into some group that's doing good work. That's happiness. My involvement. And I think that's important, and that's what we need to look at, not just for us, but what could make us happy. How can we spread some happiness, right? Could be going to Sick Kids Hospital and singing for some of the kids, and creating a choir, or getting involved, and creating a club to support some of the kids and sick kids, and creating resources for some of them who are in the hospital who might need masks, that type of thing. That's what I'm talking about, right? That's happiness. That's a smile on your face showing up at the hospital with permission. With permission. I didn't say go into a hospital, start smiling in people's faces, they get arrested. That's not what the counselor said. Set it up. If you have something positive to contribute, an organization or something, or even if you want to donate towards a certain department, hey, that spreads some happiness. Who said you can't use resources to spread some happiness? You could. You can make a difference in the child's life when someone goes to the hospital and ain't got the proper clothes or whatever, cleaning gear, and then they got some funds for that kid. Those are precious. Kids are precious, right? The kids, family, they're precious. So just giving into those hospitals, getting in there, do a little bit of work, find out about some of these organizations. Do some good work, man. That's what we're here to do. Care about each other. These are times to even express that. I don't think too many people are really talking, but too many people trying to get it popular and figure out how many people are listening and all that. They ain't really caring and talking about what's real. We need to talk about what's real. We need to talk about happiness and how we can integrate that into our lives to make the world better. That's what we need to do. Focusing on those. The news is just focusing on, not all of it, but the majority of it, the negativity. What about the positive? Don't just thank people winning the situation because you got COVID-19. Everybody let's thank the frontline workers. Yes, we for sure should do that. For sure. But don't just start there. Just go, okay, frontline workers, let's acknowledge and help wherever we can, for sure. But let that be a lesson that's where we start. That's where we start. That's where we look and say, hey, we've overlooked such an important segment in our society. All these people working in these jobs that are putting their life on the line day in and day out, not just because of COVID-19. See, you don't think that there's so many viruses in these hospitals and stuff that they can catch it, and people have died working in those institutions. I believe it. They've caught viruses and stuff. It's a whole system that they have in these hospitals, right? The negative HVAC that keeps the viruses moving and circulating. But when these people working it, some of them get sick. Some of them die from it, and they give their lives for it. And we have to be thankful and appreciative and show our happiness to all people who are helping other people in all different careers and, areas of their lives, right? So anybody that's doing some good and giving a little bit of real happiness, true, genuine happiness, they're going to feel it too. It's contagious. But we're forgetting a lot of that. We usually got to have something attached to it. That's where we get to the point. We're only doing for people unless we get something done for us, right? The exchange system. And you know what it is? Called transactions. We're living a life of transactions. We're really on the economy tip. That's all we're doing. We're forgetting about the human nature. We're on transactions. Well, I could go out because I will. This is the counselor saying thank you to all my listeners. And until we speak again, take care of yourselves.